When I built Facebook India, SoftBank, now with virtualness, my first goal with every conversation with a potential client is one, how I can solve their problem.
Kirthiga Reddy.
She was the first employee of Facebook India.
She has been the managing director of Facebook.
She was the first female investing partner at SoftBank. She sparked the first all-female, all-immigrant management team to ring the opening bell at NYSE for Athena Technology Acquisition Corp. 2's SPAC IPO.
I certainly haven't found any substitute for hard work. Life is about making the most of the cards played to you, whatever those cards are. I'm an optimist, a technologist, and an adventurer. Those are the three words I identify with.
Where you started from and where you are today. How has that changed your definition of accomplishment, success, and where you are marching towards?
Seeing my mom, who did not have the opportunity to finish her high school education because her parents said, "Beti, you only need enough math to do the grocery bill." I actually am able to accept the words accomplishment, success, power, all of those three words much more willingly versus shying away from it. But I also genuinely believe that my best is ahead of me. I've learned that I need big goals to inspire me. I surround myself with coaches, both formal and informal. And my only regret with formal coaching is, why did I not start before?
What are those dark truths about so-called leadership that we don't even talk about?
Also be very conscious of the sacrifices that you have to make to get to that role.
Who is Kirtika without everything that she has been able to accomplish for herself?
At Stanford MBA, you have to write, one of the essay questions is, what matters most to you and why? And my answer was making the most of my potential and helping others make the most of their potential. And both of those things are obsessions. And we came up with this vision of 100, 100, 100. And that was 100 million users on the platform, 100 million in revenue, 100 million people that we touch in community. Yes, and by the way, at that time, there weren't even 100 million people on the internet.
Kirtika, if there's a book written on you, what would be the last sentence, last word?
The last sentence, it's all about people. And the last word there would be people.
Hey, welcome ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the podcast, The X Monks Drive. I'm your host, Gaurav Arora. And today we have a very special guest, a friend. She has been the managing director of Facebook. And before that, she was the first employee with Facebook. What does it mean? We are going to hear from her. She is on the board of Stanford Management Committee. Hey, how does that feel like to be on the board of Stanford Management Committee? She has been instrumental in dabbling with a lot of different disciplines in her life, be it into investments, be it into raising funds, be it into leading teams, be it into starting a team from scratch, to doing a lot of other things that she's into. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Kirthiga Reddy. Hey Kirtika, finally you are here. Such a pleasure having you here.
It feels like a dream come true.
Of course.
We've been having this a conversation about doing this for years.
For years altogether, yeah, absolutely. The
be.
couple of projects that we have done, and yet I could not have the pleasure and the honor of having you at the podcast, The X Monks Drive. Finally, you're here. Thank you.
Excited to be here. Have been following all of your podcasts with great interest and excited to be part of that collection.
Thank you. You know, Kirtika, very rare it happens that I feel nervous in front of a guest. I've had the great privilege of interviewing few of the best thought leaders, business leaders, not only in the country, but worldwide.
I mean, do I look intimidating? Like, what's going on?
And trust me, yesterday I could not even sleep. I started preparing that I should have all the questions written down properly. And then I said, these questions she's going to chew and throw it. What could be the best possible question I can ask her? Because she's such an accomplished individual. At one point in time, Kirtika, you were the director engineering with Silicon Graphics. Then you moved on, joined Facebook India as the first employee of Facebook India. I mean, how is it possible? Moved on, became the managing director of Facebook India. You did not stop there as well. You moved on, became the first female investment partner with SoftBank Investments. Moved on to become an entrepreneur. Now, in all this journey, what would you attribute your accomplishments to? What would you give credit to?
No, Gaurav, thank you for that. And by the way, I am so tempted to do the reverse interview to say, so Gaurav, like, what was that? What made you feel intimidated, given that you've done such incredible interviews with such incredible thought leaders? So we will get to that. So I do want to know
Definitely.
the answer to that question. Truly an honor to be here. Truly excited to delve deep and share my thoughts. And by the way, another aspect of my life that I value deeply is also my connection to all of my alma maters, which you didn't touch upon. So I'll add that as well. So
Stanford.
I chaired the Stanford Business School Management Board. I was on the Dean's Leadership Council for Syracuse University, which is my engineering master's alma mater, very deeply connected to my school in Nanded, which is where I did my undergraduate education as well, and on their advisory board as well. So, what is a common theme among all of this? I would say three things. One is being surrounded by great role models, great mentors, people who almost believed in me almost more than I believed in myself. That's one. Two, knowing what lack of opportunity looks like and never taking the privilege of having opportunity for granted. And I'll talk more about that. And three, I certainly haven't found any substitute for hard work. I've tried, but if you have any tips there, let me know that as well. So, quickly on each one of these three things. One, the first role model and person who believed in me almost more than I believed in myself was my father. I remember when their belief was if there was engineering institution in the neighborhood, that's where their child would go to. And when I cried and I said, but I want to apply to higher ranked universities than the one my father was in Nanded at that time, he told me, Kirtiga, you can go to an incredible institution and do nothing with that opportunity, or you can make the most of what you have in front of you. And truly, Gaurav, when I then graduated, I graduated with a second rank in the university, which included the other colleges that I could not have applied to. And that was a moment of clarity for me about life is about making the most of the cards played to you, whatever those cards are.
Yeah.
Right? So that's one. And that pattern of people believing in me, giving me guidance, and helping mold me has continued throughout my professional journey. The other part of lack of opportunity comes from seeing my mom, who did not have the opportunity to finish her high school education because her parents said, Beti, you only need enough math to do the grocery bill, right?
I can so much relate to that.
Yeah. And that it's not an anomaly. She's not one. She is one of millions who have been denied that opportunity. And she is wiser and smarter than I ever will be. So knowing the opportunity that was denied to her and the privilege of having the opportunity to be educated, to make a difference, makes me like super restless about wanting to make the most of the opportunity in front of us. And as I said, no substitute for hard work.
Yeah. And I'm not surprised, when you said that your friends, your family members, your father, your mother, your mentors trusted you so much that you could not be accomplished. And I'm not using the word successful. I find the word successful is too cliched, and especially knowing you, Kirtika. And also it reminds me that I heard it somewhere that you just need one person and entire family to gift a generative future to the next generation. And I'll come back to your daughters as well, the kind of work that they are involved in, the kind of disciplines that they are engaged in, the kind of interests that they have, and how they are traveling the world.
Totally.
And tapping into what they genuinely care for.
Tapping into genuinely what you care for is another big theme. And I do think what you just reflected on is a reminder for each one of us to think through who are those people whom we are going to make sure we express our belief in, because it might be that expression of belief and that support that might
change the
catapult
trajectory.
them and change their trajectory.
Absolutely.
Right? So if anything, today just pause, think about the 1, 2, 3 people whom you want to express your belief in, and do that. And that, I think, would have made this podcast episode very worthwhile.
Thank you, Kirtika. Kirtika, in the entire journey, where you started from and where you are today, how has that changed your definition of accomplishment, success, and where you are marching towards?
So, Gaurav, for one, I actually am able to accept the words accomplishment, success, power, all of those three words much more willingly versus shying away from it. I still remember, and huge credit again to people in my life. I remember I was going to one of the most powerful women award ceremonies, and that I was being honored along with incredible other business leaders. I was walking out the door that day. My husband couldn't join me, and as I was walking out the door, he said, "Congratulations! This is so exciting. Have a great time." And I looked at him and I said, "Dave, like this recognition is because of my role as the managing director of Facebook India. So yes, I mean, thank you, but it's nothing to do with me. It's about this role that I'm really going and representing." And I know you're smiling because he actually sat me down and he said, "I want you to hear this, okay?" He said, "Yes, it is because of the role that you play. But remember, you went through a very stringent interview process. It was like everyone, their mother, their brother, their father, their sister. You were chosen for this role. You're holding this role now. And so, as much as you want to talk about the role being what is taking you there, take the moment to appreciate your role in that." So it was just really important for me to hear that. And I think there is a gender aspect here as well in for women not owning and embracing. So it was really important for me to hear, really important for me to internalize, and also just fully embrace what I can do with my platform, if you may, my success, my accomplishments, my power, call it anything,
Expression.
to help empower others.
Yeah.
That to me is my biggest definition of success
Yeah,
right now,
yeah.
is how is it that I can help enable others.
Kirtika, every time when I'm interacting with any women leader, I don't like the word women leader. If you're using the word leader itself is good enough. And I tell them that, hey, go and check her profile, Kirtiga's profile. And then I will talk about you. And then they would ask me, Gaurav, it's very easy for you to talk about her. I'm sure she would not talk about what you are talking about her. And I will tell them that she believes in hard work. I know the project that we were involved in, you would be involved in that project to understand the details so well. As you mentioned that the God is in the detail. In the entire journey, I would want you to specifically talk about an episode in your life, if it all happened, where you felt a sense of lack of worthiness, or where you started to question, yeah, will I be able to crack it? Have you experienced this? I'm just curious.
No, never. No. Of course, if you believe that, you will believe anything. But Gaurav, I would say, I think of that like every day, last month, last week.
No.
And no, truly, there are times where I've had to wake up and think, even if I did nothing for the rest of my life, I've had a well-lived life and had a lot of impact. But I also genuinely believe that my best is ahead of
Yet
me.
to come.
And I will tell you that 10 years from now, 20 years from now,
Yeah.
I genuinely believe my best
Yeah.
is yet to come.
Oh, I wish you all the very best. I will always be your biggest cheerleader.
No, thank you. And that to me is also the biggest measure of accomplishment.
The positions that you have held in the past, they're not small positions, right? Working as the first female investment partner with SoftBank, being the managing director of Facebook, involved in several funds. You started your own fund, being on the chair of Stanford management board. I don't know, how does it feel like to be there, by the way? Yeah. What are those dark truths about so-called leadership that we don't even talk about? We stay away from. We keep them locked in the closets.
Yeah. So people often talk, there's a lot of discussion about if you want to get to a particular role, what is it that you need to do to get to those roles? But what people don't often talk about is, Gaurav, exactly that. also be very conscious of the sacrifices that you have to make to get to that role.
Yeah.
And if you're not fully signed up for both sides, what you have to do, as well as what you're going to have to give up to get there, just think again and internalize that.
Yeah.
And Gaurav, by the way, I have huge respect for people with all levels of ambition, right? We don't need everyone to be A+ players and wake up with this obsession of change the world. We really need people who find their passion, find their ambitions in several different ways, and acknowledge and celebrate that. I do think industry is particularly geared towards the career-oriented, but someone who is a homemaker, who is homeschooling their child, is probably has an even harder job than what I do. And I want to respect all professions and all choices that people make. But if you then choose this path of being a career professional, aspiring for C-level roles, and as they say, choose your heart, right? Being a single is hard, being married is hard. You have to choose your heart, and every aspect has two coins of it. Choose your heart, right? And if you choose this path of being a career professional and C-level roles, I'd say personally for me, one, I'm not proud of my sleep factor. It is something that is always on my to-do list to get better, but there are always so many things to do that, again, not proud of it, don't recommend it. I do make a conscious effort on like the fitness and the exercise side, and that is something that keeps my sanity. I usually have a goal of
10 kilometers a week?
10 kilometers a week, and I do a 10K run. So 50 to 10K runs a year is a goal. As well as I've always signed up for my next half marathon. The last half marathon I ran was a Las Vegas half marathon. The next one that I've signed up for is a San Diego half marathon. So that's something that just keeps me going. I've learned that I need big goals to inspire me. Otherwise, it's just too easy to sleep another extra hour over the weekend and over the days, and that just keeps my my fitness regime going. So those are the aspects that things don't talk about. And going back to your previous question about self-doubt worth, having a community that you can have similar conversations, people who understand and have gone through similar paths. Because again, your reaction was really, you had that sense last month. I don't believe it, right? But we all go through those journeys. So having like-minded people to talk with, and personally, and so appreciating of your coaching career, Gaurav. I surround myself with coaches, both formal and informal. And my only regret with formal coaching is, why did I not start before? When people ask me, what's your secret to success and accomplishment, a lot of time I tell them it's about just the support system that I have, both formal and informal. The last thing that I'll mention is things like mental wellness is not spoken enough about. And I have freely sought help with therapy, including, for example, when my aunt passed away unexpectedly through COVID. It was a 24-hour period. It caused huge trauma. I went for trauma therapy with our dear friend Shamal. You would go seek medical help for your back injury, your shoulder injury. Why wouldn't you seek the same kind of help for the most important component of ourselves, our mind?
So irrespective of where you are in your career, irrespective of where you are on earth, you would go through those professional setbacks and personal losses. And unless we tie it together and unless we take care of ourselves, we'll not be able to sustain it. Kirtika, let's look at this. This is Kirtika's brain.
Yeah.
Yep. Let's look at that from an objective point of view.
This is a fun exercise. Let's do this.
What is driving her to accomplish so much at the cost of her sleep at times? Right? And who is Kirtika without everything that she has been able to accomplish for herself?
Great question. So, what is it that causes that drive? One is being very aware of the opportunity that each one of us have and that I have, and I spoke about my mother and her journey, not taking that opportunity for granted. At Stanford MBA, you have to write, one of the essay questions is, what matters most to you and why? It might seem like a simple question, what matters more to you and why? Exactly, right? It takes a lot of introspection. And my answer was making the most of my potential and helping others make the most of their potential. And both of those things are obsessions. Right? So am I making the most of this gift of life that God has given? And two, am I doing all that I can to help and uplift others? So that's something that drives me.
Kirtika.
That drives me. It's an obsession. And Gaurav, when I have moments then where I go get to ring the New York Stock Exchange bell for IPOs of my portfolio companies, the companies that I'm involved with, and one of those times, my mother actually joined in over Zoom and was there. That whole visual of my mom being at the New York Stock Exchange, someone who hadn't had the opportunity to finish her high school education, while, by the way, her brother finished a postgraduate degree. So clearly this wasn't lack of awareness of the value of education, but a gender divide. So then to see that transformation in one generation where she's at the New York Stock Exchange with her daughter, with her granddaughters who are also on the podium, gives you the sense of how much change one generation can drive, and a sense of responsibility of how much different one needs to leave the world for the next generation.
Yeah. I can so much relate to that. The other day I was with Neer. There was some part we had, some prayers we were doing at home. And when everyone went off, I was just mopping the floor. And Neer said, Gaurav, she calls me Gaurav, said, Gaurav, don't do this. I will do it. And I said, why would you do that? He said, because boys don't do it. For me, that was a jolt. I said, nah, that's not what I really want for my daughter.
Yeah.
If it's boys don't do it, I think I have failed as an individual, not as a father, as an individual. So who is Kirtika without the accomplishments? At the core of it, word, metaphor, object, image.
I'm an optimist, a technologist, and an adventurer. Those are the three words I identify with.
Okay. I remember there was a project that we were involved in.
Yes.
And I asked this question then as well.
Okay.
At that point in time, you were a part of Facebook. And very respectfully, gracefully, you said, hey, Gaurav, I don't think that there's anything that I can tell you right now. I heard you saying, I cannot tell you. And then I also heard right now. Now you're not a part of Facebook. Anything that you would like to convey, mention, declare, share with us that you did not like in Facebook and you did not appreciate, and now you'll be comfortable, or even if there's some kind of discomfort, please do share that with us.
What was the question that I didn't answer at that
The question is, what is it that you don't appreciate in Facebook?
Was that
While
a
you were
question you
working
asked me there and
Yes.
I said that I couldn't
Yes.
share with you?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not so sure it was something that I did not appreciate at Facebook when I was working there, but maybe I'll tell you both sides, right? One, I actually deeply appreciated how involved, how decisions were made with inputs from different stakeholders. There was an adage that at Facebook, nothing is someone else's business. You are expected to have a voice about everything going on with the company. You could go have a conversation and observe something that you thought could be an opportunity with a different department. You could go have a conversation, and the other person would never say, why are you thinking about it? This is not part of your job description. Instead, they would have a cup of coffee with you, and if it was the right thing to do, they would do it. Right?
Wow.
So one, I usually appreciate that sense of ownership that brought. But as you know, Gaurav, every strength that is overused can also become a weakness.
Yeah.
And there were certainly times where decisions took forever to move because you needed like 60 people to weigh in and needed everyone to feel comfortable with the outcome before
In
we
Facebook.
moved. In Facebook. Right? Then I went to my next organization where you would discover an inefficiency and say how meetings were being done, and the observation that, this meeting has now become really large and there are people who come there and just sit with their laptop, you make that observation on a Friday and also make the observation that that was actually intimidating or inhibiting strong conversations and candid discussions. By Monday, it was changed to become a 12 people meeting. And there are pros and cons, right? Certainly, if you go the second directions, there are people who feel disenfranchised, not consulted, and that sense
Yeah,
of ownership.
yeah.
But having that balance so
Is
that you
important.
have the right ownership, but also are able to move the business at the pace that's.
Yeah. While at Facebook, Kirtika, I know you were working very closely with Sheryl Sandberg. One of those piece of advices that she offered to you then continues to support you today as well and deal with the difficulties that you deal with on day-to-day basis.
Cheryl is an incredible role
Yeah.
model, mentor, coach. So many things that come to mind of how she has influenced my leadership. One of it is when I started, I asked her, "What advice do you have for me to make the biggest impact that I can at Facebook?" She said, "Kirtika, you haven't risen up in the operations organization." And I was going to co-lead operations for them in India. She said, make sure that you spend the time to understand the nitty-gritty of the role, because that is what will give you the power to operate at a 30,000 foot level.
Beautiful.
It was a really important lesson. I took that to heart. I used to have shadow sessions with my team every single week. I used to know exactly what was happening at a grassroots level. And that both helped me create extraordinary relationships with people across levels, but also know deeply what was going on in the business for this. And that continues to influence me. You spoke about the many career changes that I have
Yeah.
made. That philosophy has been super important.
Wow.
So, for example, when I took on a sales role, I had never done tracking, forecasting before. And here I was with my peer set of people who had done exactly that for the last 20 years. Being able to lean into those quote unquote gaps that I was
Lean
seeing.
in.
Lean in, yes, embrace those gaps. Very apt, given we are talking Cheryl's advice, and saying, okay, I have to make sure that I master this. And reaching out to the head of China, Jane Lung, she came to India and was with me for a few weeks to help me learn very quickly. And fast forward to my role at SoftBank, the first few deals that I did, I made sure that I was downloading the right software, Cap IQ, doing the valuation and the modeling. My associates would look at me with alarm, thinking, why is she doing this? Why doesn't she trust us about why am I not doing this? And by the way, there was also the sentiment of, she's asking us so many questions. I could have just done this in a fraction of the time that I've had to work on this. But as I explained why I was doing this, and that it was really important for
And
me
it's
to
not
understand.
coming from a space of lack of trust, or it's not coming from a inability to delegate. It's coming from a space of curiosity, and I would like to learn more. I would like to understand what's happening at the grassroots level.
And so that has been a really important part of my career changes and being successful in
So
this.
Kirtika, you spoke about operations here.
Yeah.
And I've been fascinated with this thought that how come there are leaders, because navigating in this complex world where every third day the new strategic initiative is taking birth in an organization. So how was it for you, if you can just share one of those examples where you could take care of the day-to-day operations and yet keep your eyes on the long-term strategic initiatives? How did you manage this fragile balance?
We spent a lot of time in each of the organizations that I've been at, upfront thinking about the vision and the mission. So whether it was Facebook India, where we took weeks, where we projected out, where is it that we wanted Facebook India to be in 4 years? It was a cross-functional team, and we came up with this vision of 100.
Yeah.
If early Facebook days, you would see that poster all over.
Yeah.
And that was 100 million users on the platform, 100 million in revenue, 100 million people that we touch in community.
And that's, you're talking about some 12, 15 years back.
Yes.
And I'm
And by
sure
the way,
at
at that
that
time,
point
there
in time-
weren't even 100 million people
Absolutely,
on the internet.
yes.
And so this was a BHAG of all sorts.
I'm
We
sure.
had no plans to even create a sales team at that time. But give or take few quarters, the power of a big, bold vision and working hard towards it. we, the whole cross-functional team was able to deliver to that milestone. And then, of course, they came the next set of milestone. Today, Facebook India is a several billion-dollar business today. So once you do that, and then you have a North Star that everyone is aligned to, then you can shift focus to the day-to-day. Right? The biggest challenge happens when people don't know what they're going for. How is it that they're going to measure success? That friction happens.
So the clarity of where we are heading towards is important.
And that is, as we think about influence without authority, because another question that Sheryl had was, Kirtika, Facebook, like many other companies, was organized functionally, which meant that while the operations team would report to me, or later the sales team would report to me, HR would report functionally, right? Finance would report functionally. So, but we still had to work together as a cohesive team. And so her biggest question was, how would you lead when you have a lot of responsibility, but not the reporting structure authority?
Yeah.
Not quite no, but limit, like you'll have to work through reporting structure authority in areas where we
and
don't
what
report
was your
to
response?
you. And my response to her was the power of a big, bold vision, making sure that we are all aligned on what the vision is. Communication, and also like celebrating wins along the way. And I think it worked, because here I am. The answer was the right answer.
Kirti, if I were to write a book, I'll definitely talk about these three.
Yeah.
But the world where we live in,
Yeah.
we have human beings. We don't have robots. But people have their own insecurities, a sense of comparison and a sense of jealousy as well. How did you facilitate a conversation in a team where people take responsibility of their own insecurities, people take responsibility of their own fears, and yet come together for the BHAGs, for the common vision, communicate with each other and celebrate together?
Gaurav, I was talking at IIT Delhi a few weeks ago. Yes. And I shared with them this framework that I have of life and of coaching, mentoring, helping people, where as we are walking in life, there are people ahead of you, there are people besides you, and there are people behind you. From people in front of you, it's an opportunity to seek inspiration. From people besides you, seek companionship. And from people behind you, it's an opportunity to seek help. Just like how you said, no matter what level you are, you have these insecurities and fears. I also want to emphasize that no matter where you are, you have the same ability to seek inspiration, seek companionship, and help others. Whether you're a student, an entry-level engineer, or a C-level executive, that picture is true, right? So, but the fascinating thing is that I had students come up to me after the talk and say, we understand all of that, the seek inspiration part, but how is it that I stop myself from feeling jealous of the people in front of me? One, I was so incredibly impressed that the students had the awareness to recognize
Identify
that
jealousy.
and come up to me and ask me that question and have that curiosity, right? And for me, there is a perspective of having gray hairs in that.
Really? Where? Come on.
Color. Does a very powerful job of the same people that you quote unquote might feel competitive with are usually the people who will carry you and lift you during the ups and the downs. I've had the perspective of seeing the conversation at the first-year business school reunion, the 5-year business school reunion, and the 20-year business school reunion. Also the perspective that at one time you might be ahead in one thing, money, relationships, power, title, all of that is transient. At the end of the day, the only thing that is lasting is the relationships.
Let me come to this point.
And
this,
health. And health. Two things.
Health.
Yes.
Health and relationship. So you have spoken about health.
Yes.
How you would like to improve your sleeping patterns, and of course you run half a marathon, 52 half marathons in a year.
No, 52 10Ks
10Ks and
always
few
signed up for
half
half
marathons.
marathon.
Sorry. Now, I remember the project that we were involved in a couple of years back. Now, as a part of the project, I got to interact with so many people who are a part of your life in different phases of your life. Not even once Not even once, Kirtiga. I told you in the past as well. Not even once I heard anyone talking ill about you. And people were all appreciative of the genuine relationships that you have been able to build and sustain with them. What is your secret sauce for building genuine relationships and sustaining network, both inside the organization and outside the organization? I struggle there.
Gaurav, maybe there was a selection bias. Maybe the people that I sent to you were the
Come
people.
on now.
People are at the core of what drives me. If you look at my brain, half that brain,
Here it is.
exactly. So part of that is just the opportunity that life has given and making sure that I'm making the most of that. The other big part is people. So this conversation is just even this conversation and making sure I was able to fit this in, and I'm going to run to my next meeting very shortly, is really a recognition of how incredible you are and what you give out to the world, and wanting to make sure I do my little part in giving back to all the things that you give to the world. So people are a big driver for me, and just the recognition that, again, titles, roles, projects, initiatives will come and go.
Yeah.
And my view is that people understand that, they see that. And to me, that's also one of the biggest drivers in my business success. When I built Facebook India, SoftBank, now with Virtualness, my first goal with every conversation with a potential client is, one, how I can solve their problem. It's not about like how much revenue I can get. Of course, revenue is important in a business model, but people understand where someone is coming from. Once you genuinely believe that the other person is indexed on your problem, number one, and of course, business terms are important, but that comes too. Their willingness to engage, their willingness to innovate, it goes higher.
Yeah.
Trust is a big enabler.
Yeah.
Business at the end of the day is also fundamentally comes down to people.
Yeah.
And that needs to be the biggest aspect that people need to keep
You
in
spoke
mind.
about making the best out of my potential that I've been blessed with. At the core of anything, if you look at a part of this brain, is relationship and people.
Yeah.
And of course, you spoke about health. You also spoke about virtualness. That's the project that you're working on.
Yeah.
Now you're an entrepreneur, you're building virtualness. I understand even that is all about connecting the right people and ensuring that they make the best out of their potential. Tell me, what is virtualness and why this name?
I'll credit the name to my incredible co-founder, Saurabh Doshi, who used to run the creator economy for Facebook in Asia Pacific. We know each other for over a decade. We have won together, lost together, cried together, laughed together, celebrated together. So it's an incredible platform to go build a company together. The story behind virtualness and why go back into building. Some people ask me, like, shouldn't you just be sitting on a beach, maybe doing board roles? There's too much to do in this world. And if not me, who? If not now, who? So we are seeing this whole move of the internet going from, Gaurav, a read-only era, which was the Google times, Google being just an incredible giant that pioneered that whole wave, to the internet going to the read-write era with platforms like Facebook, where you not only could read information or find out about a brand or a celebrity or a sports person, you could also interact with them, to now the digital age is going to a world where it's read, write, and own. You have ownership in the digital world. And that is after having seen and bet on the first one, playing a leadership role on the second one, playing a leadership role in this third era of the internet is what virtualness is all about. And our fundamental thesis is that blockchain is going to change every industry as we know it. And in the world of Gen AI and fakes, the authenticity and verification that blockchain
It's going to be a
provide
very
becomes
vital role.
even more
Yeah.
important. So for the first time, you have an ability to have an authenticated, verifiable digital asset where you can validate
Authenticated, verifiable assets that you can have on internet.
on the internet. You could have a digital piece of art or a video that someone could have downloaded. Someone may download like 10,000 times of this podcast. But if we choose to actually authenticate, verify a certain segment and give it to some of our nearest and dearest friends, we could do that. And there is the equivalent of, call it a real estate title deed or a public court record that could validate that this actually came from the X Monk show and was given to person XYZ. If they then transfer that ownership, there's a complete ownership provenance that can be traced. It's a mini computer. You can build things like royalty percentages, unlocking benefits. This is changing every industry as we know
I'm
it.
sure.
From our children, when they get a degree certificate, they might get a piece of paper as they walk the stage, but their actual degree certificate will be an NFT that's validated on the blockchain. We are in the midst of partnerships with, high-end jewelry chains in India or to authenticate the jewelry
Designs.
not just the design but also the pieces, so that as it gets passed on and as it gets resold, where is the authenticity for that, right?
But isn't it fascinating that it's going to give a jolt to the entire commodity industry?
Yeah.
And it's a different orbit we are going to play.
100%, and it's already happening. We all will be using blockchain even without knowing about it. And Gaurav, one of the fastest moving areas that we see is actually in the MICE industry in India, which is an acronym that I'm getting even more and more familiar about, which is Meeting Incentives, Conferences and Events. We were the authentication partner for a Guinness World Record event recently with Women in Cloud, where we had the most number of virtual vision boards in a concurrent environment. So now you have an authenticated, verifiable award commemorative that shows that this was actually part of this world record, and this Gaurav actually participated in it, or Kirtika actually participated in it.
Wow.
In contrast, my Las Vegas half marathon, I got a medal at the end that had no authentication that says this actually came from the Rock and Roll Marathon
Tomorrow
franchise.
I can keep it.
Exactly. Right? Or that I picked it up on the street. So that's where the world is going to. Think of all the swags that you get in meetings and conferences, half of which you leave behind in your hotel room, or that gets consumed. How is it that you can use this new infrastructure for community, loyalty, engagement, and lasting memories?
Help me understand, how is it going to benefit a common man on the streets of Delhi or New York or Beijing?
Yeah.
How is it going to benefit them?
So totally. So
You can create it and you can own it.
you can we have examples right from the autism center in Toronto. We have artwork from the children there that is being sold on the platform. So whether it is examples like that too, if I think about the Guinness World Record, the ability to authenticate, while Guinness World Record, it's a matter of pride. They worked really hard for it. How is it that they verify and they validate that? How is it that you distinguish a real certificate from a non-real certificate? I worked so hard for that marathon, that half marathon. How is it that I can really prove that I won this versus someone else, right?
It's so beautiful. As I'm just listening to you, Kirtika, a friend of mine, he works with an organization called GIA in Mumbai.
Yeah.
And they authenticate the value of a diamond.
Yeah.
Now just imagine a piece of craft or a piece of art created by somebody who's living in autism center. For somebody, that must be a diamond. So if there's an authentication code for the diamond, why not for that painting?
100%. I often use the analogy of the GIA certificate when I describe blockchain, where I say, you could have two stones that look identical to the naked eye, and sometimes even experts can't figure it out. But one comes with a GIA certificate, and that adds a few more zeros to it. Similarly, you now have that mechanism in the digital world, and imagine the possibilities of what that can do in the space of insurance, real estate, education certificates, moments memorabilia. And Gaurav, as our dear friend Lakshmi Pratruri often says, life is not about the breaths that we take, but
Yeah.
about the moments that take our breaths away.
Absolutely.
So for me, thinking about how virtualness can be a platform that enables all of these moments, and for us to be that billionaire of moments, where we are providing authenticity for those moments that matter, all of your different accomplishments.
Yeah.
We have a partnership with Travel Buddy, which is a travel organization in India where they do bespoke vacations, and they are capturing part of the moments from their travel, and that's part of the souvenirs that's given. So that's the vision, is to be a billionaire of moments and to provide for authentication of these moments and make sure that these moments are ones that keep on giving and can not just be that moment at that point of time, but how do we drive ongoing engagement, community loyalty.
Let's suppose tomorrow you are talking to two of your daughters. And if you ask them, hey, write down the name of your role model human, would they write your name? If yes, why? If no, why?
Okay. One is a great question. And my answer to that, Gaurav, is that if I were to write down my role models, I would have both of my daughters in that list. So I don't know about them, but I can say that I have I will have their names, and so much so that I have an ink talk called MC Square. My children, my coaches.
Yes, I heard
so
that.
yeah, so go listen to that because I learned so much from them. Whether it is new technology trends that drive where I need to focus my investing energy, or them just keeping me grounded. When I talked about I'm going to write a book, their first question was like, "Who's going to read your book?"
Yeah.
So they keep me grounded.
yeah.
But I'll also talk about just the wisdom that they have. My older one, I think, was 9 years old when she had to write an essay about who inspires you, and her note was, "Inspiration has to come from within."
Really?
At 9 years old.
Wow.
So there you go.
Yeah, I think the generation is getting smarter and smarter. Every time when I speak to Neer and I ask her, who do you love the most? She would say, myself. And she's 4. And then who else? 99. Whom? Mama. And Golub, 95. So I don't know where she gets her calculations from. Kirtika, if there's a book written on you, what would be the last sentence, last word?
The last sentence. It's all about people. And the last word there would be people.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Kirtika. And I know that I can go on and on with this conversation. And thank you for making time during your visit to India. And I know today you are traveling back to the US. I can't thank you enough. Shukran.
Shukran to you as well, and keep inspiring.
Shukran. Thank you.
All right.
So that was a wrap. What a phenomenal conversation it was. My key learnings as I'm reflecting on the conversation is, what does it mean to be a human? Of course, you might have designations. Of course, you might be at the top of any hierarchies that you might be a part of. And yet, you would have setbacks that you'll have to deal with. Yet, you would have personal losses that you would grapple with. You would carry the grief deep within your heart, and yet next day you have to go to the organization, you have to lead a team and deliver on performance. So at the end of the day, it's the performance that matters in the competitive world of corporate startups that we work in. So if you enjoyed this conversation, it could be you took something from this conversation, how to lead teams, how to influence without authority, how to be a CXO, how to bring in the transition in the different roles that you are playing, or how to take care of the strategic initiatives. I'm sure you would have loved it. Do share this with someone that you feel would get benefited from this conversation. And do take some time to rate us, review us on your favorite podcast channel, be it Spotify or Apple. At the same time, take some time to follow us, subscribe us on YouTube as well. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to catching up with you next week with yet another interesting, thought-provoking conversation.